You are wearing something right now. You probably put it on without thinking. You chose it in seconds, maybe less. But the fact that you did it at all, the fact that every single human being on Earth covers their body every single day, is one of the strangest puzzles in our entire evolutionary history. Because here is the thing. Clothes are not natural. No other primate wears them. No animal evolved needing them. And for the first few million years of human existence, your ancestors walked this earth entirely, completely naked. So why did that change? And why did it change so deeply that today, the absence of clothing feels almost physically wrong to you? The answer is not modesty. It is not fashion. And it is definitely not what you were taught in school. It starts with a parasite. Around 170,000 years ago, something changed in the human lineage. Researchers Mark Stoneking and David Reed discovered this by doing something almost absurdly clever. They studied lice, human body lice to be precise. Body lice are different from head lice in one critical way. They live in clothing. They evolved to live in clothing. They need clothing fibers to lay their eggs, which means body lice could not have existed before humans started wearing clothes. So Stoneking and Reed sequenced the DNA of body lice, calculated when they diverged from head lice, and used that split as a molecular clock. The answer pointed to somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. That is when your ancestors first started covering themselves. But why then? What was happening on Earth 100,000 to 170,000 years ago that made clothing necessary? The answer is ice. Paleoclimatologists have reconstructed the temperature record of that era with remarkable precision. The period overlaps with a glacial phase called marine isotope stage 6, one of the coldest stretches in the last million years. Parts of Africa, yes, Africa, experienced dramatic temperature drops. Coastal environments your ancestors relied on for food were shrinking. Inland regions were becoming too cold, too dry, too hostile. Your ancestors were being squeezed. Population bottlenecks from this era show up in the genetic record. There were moments when the entire human species may have been reduced to just a few thousand individuals. And in that cold, something shifted. Survival required warmth. Warmth required something new. But here is where it gets strange. Because the first clothes were almost certainly not what you picture. There was no tailoring, no weaving, no thread. The first garments were animal skins. Whole pelts draped over shoulders, tied with sinew, wrapped around the body in the crudest way imaginable. Anthropologist Ian Gilligan has spent years reconstructing the cognitive leap this required. He argues that clothing was not just a practical tool. It was a conceptual revolution. To make a garment, even a simple one, you had to hold a future state in your mind. You had to look at a dead animal and see a coat. That kind of thinking, what Gilligan calls thermal planning, is a hallmark of modern human cognition. So clothing was not just about warmth, it was evidence that your ancestors could think forward in time. Now think about what that pelt draped over a shoulder actually looked like. It covered some parts of the body and left others exposed. Over generations, and we are talking thousands of years here, the humans who survived were the ones who kept their core warm while freeing their hands to work. The configuration of coverage started to follow function. Hips, chest, shoulders. The extremities came later, as needle technology improved and stitching became possible. Researchers have found bone needles as old as 50,000 years, evidence that someone, somewhere, figured out how to pierce hide and pull fiber through it. That single invention, a needle, changed what clothing could be. By the time modern humans were migrating out of Africa and into the brutal cold of Europe and Central Asia, around 45,000 to 50,000 years ago, they were already carrying with them sophisticated garment-making traditions. Archaeologist Olga Sofer found evidence at Upper Paleolithic sites in Eastern Europe of finely processed plant fibers, the raw material for woven textiles. These people were not just surviving in the cold. They were manufacturing. They were making things that did not exist before they made them. And here is the counterintuitive twist that changes everything you think you know about clothing. Modesty did not create clothes. Clothes created modesty. This is not a philosophical position, it is an anthropological one. When researchers study the few remaining uncontacted or recently contacted cultures around the world, groups that had lived in warm climates without clothing, something consistent emerges. They do not experience nakedness as shameful. They experience it as neutral. It is only after clothing becomes a cultural norm that its absence starts to